My guest today is entrepreneur and influencer Patrick Bet-David. Patrick, it is so nice to finally connect with you.
It's great to be on with you.
Patrick, you are such a great representation of the American dream. You're an immigrant. You came from a war-torn country of Iran, and now you are an entrepreneur. You have millions of followers on YouTube, on Instagram, on other social media platforms. How did you grow your brand?
How did I grow my brand? So one, on the business side, I think the approach I took is I always ask the one question from folks when I would say, how did you make your money? So if I buy a book and I would read a book, I wanted to research the author who's speaking on the topic, what gave them the moral authority to speak on the topic. So if somebody wrote a book about business, I'd say, let me see who this author is. Let me see what how'd you make your money? Here's how I made. Okay, great. Now I'm interested. I want to know exactly what you're talking about because your past validates what you're talking about. So when I started creating content, a lot of people were initially saying, Pat, you should create content. Most of the content I was creating was private. It wasn't public. So it was more unlisted, only for the people that I work directly with, not a public platform. And one day I eventually said, if I'm going to talk about anything, what would I talk about? And I made a list of words: entrepreneurship, capitalism, business, sales, money. These are things I know a lot about. So I went very niche, very specific. And I shared my experiences. I shared what worked, what didn't work, how I raised money, how I fired people, how I made a mistake firing people, how I hired an assistant, my rules of money I follow, how you double your money, scariest moments of being a business person, how do you date when you're an entrepreneur, who you shouldn't date when you're an entrepreneur, how you should marry, how you shouldn't, all these things that I started talking about. And all of a sudden an audience showed up for it. And next thing you know, it led to what it is today.
Wow. So I remember that when Artsakh was attacked by Azerbaijan and Turkey, so many of us were disturbed by the deafening silence of the media, the international community. And then there you are, you have this amazing platform where you have millions of people listening to you. What was your state of mind at the time where you have this amazing platform and you can really make a difference?
Yeah, so I spoke about it on the podcast multiple times. We were speaking with the prime minister multiple times. The prime minister's right-hand person, it was a lady we would speak to in Armenia. Every time I would speak to her, it was 2:30 in the morning. Let me see if I remember her name. I'll pull it up here. We would speak to her regularly. And she was Mane was her name. And Mane was the publicist for the prime minister, Pashinyan. So we're about to book the interview. We're going to raise money. We're going to get all our guys. I had people lined up to raise $1 million, $2 million, folks in my community. And then he did the interview with BBC, where the guy, challenged him tremendously. And then Mane called me back and she says, he's willing to do it, but only in Armenian. I said, I promise you, he doesn't want to do it in Armenian. My Armenian's terrible. He said, I promise you, he doesn't want to do it in English. I said, well, let's figure something out. I said, how about if I fly out to Armenia? He says, would you fly to Armenia? I said, only if he guarantees a 2-hour interview. I don't want to do a 20-minute interview. I'm not going to fly out to Armenia. And we were going to go with a crew and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The day I think it's Sarkisian who agreed for the interview, the president, the next day is when the challenges were faced with Pashinyan came out and, hey, we're not going to continue with the fight, with the war, all this other stuff. So it was a series of events that was taking place behind closed doors with a good amount of people that were involved in us getting together, but unfortunately it never happened.
Yeah, that's amazing that you were so involved though, because I know a lot of us were scrambling, trying to figure out what we can do, how we can help. I actually learned about you through your interview with, it went viral, your interview with NBA player Enes Kanter.
Enes Kanter, yes, we talked about Armenian genocide and
you basically
his position on it.
Yeah, you basically told him, I'm half Armenian, half Assyrian. What are your thoughts on the genocide? And how did you feel about his answer?
I think he has been trained very well on giving the most proper answer, and I give credit to his publicist because whoever his PR people are working with him, they've taught him how to give the most vanilla answer that doesn't get him in trouble, but yet still gives the answers. So, but I'm sure when I drove him to his appointment that night, right after the meeting was done, we were driving, we were talking to each other for a good 40 minutes. On the drive in Dallas, he opened up a little bit more, but on the interview, he didn't. And obviously, I think people know my opinion of Erdogan, and I think people know where I stand with Erdogan's positioning. But for him, he's not a fan of Erdogan, but he's a fan of the person that was almost about to, potentially hurt the chances of Erdogan. And but when it comes down to the topic of Armenian genocide, they're pretty much all on the same page. But they're just not on the same page with Erdogan leading Turkey because he wants somebody else ruling it. Anyways, it's very political on his end. And no matter how many times I pushed him, he didn't want to really give his answer. He just gave the safe answer.
You were asking about their ideology, what exactly they're going for. And I didn't really feel like there was an answer in the end, a satisfactory answer, but you definitely pushed and you're like, hey, okay, so what's the ideology? There must be some sort of a goal. But I thought you did really great.
I appreciate that.
So you create so much inspirational and educational content about entrepreneurship and really being able to get rid of the inhibitions, get rid of the restrictions. Right now, with Armenia being in this political crisis and us having a humanitarian crisis, what kind of a bridge do you think that we could create here, the diaspora with Armenia, in order to help with the economy there?
Okay, so that's a loaded question. I'm going to do my best to just speak freely, and you can stop me at any time and interrupt me. And some people are going to agree with me, and some people are not going to agree with me, but I'm going to speak very freely. So I'm half Armenian, half Assyrian. So on the Assyrian side, I'll tell you the challenge with the Assyrian side. I've gone and sat down with the Assyrian community and the leaders of the club. Assyrian has an Assyrian club and the Assyrian church. The Assyrian club has authority, a lot of power. The Assyrian church also has a lot of authority, power, but neither one of them like to listen to the younger generation that's coming up, because to them it's like, I'm older, I've been around, you don't know what you're talking about, you have to listen to us. Great. The general of the army in the Assyrian army flew out, and he and I had a meeting together at Rafi's place, a private meeting that we had together with himself. He was the leader of the army, Assyrian army, and that was when they were going back and forth with ISIS. Wasn't a pretty situation. And we had a meeting together. And it was a good 3-hour meeting together about, what's going on and what kind of help they need. And hey, why don't we try to go get the US government to support, et cetera, et cetera. No problem. And then we had similar meetings with other leaders that flew out, and what can we do to help out with the Assyrian community? The Assyrian community is so concerned about who's right that unfortunately that is holding them back to unite and do something together. Now that's Assyria. Let's set that part aside, and you'll kind of see how this comes about on the Armenian side. The Armenian community, if you go back and look at the Kerkorian story, right? If you read the book, The Gambler, and if you study who he was and the amount of money he gave, and he always gets, hey, he gave so much money, but if you ask the people that were closely involved about how he felt after he gave all the money, and you really read about how he felt about it, he was very disappointed at the fact that the money wasn't used properly. Now, as Armenians, we don't like to talk about this. Folks in Armenia don't like to talk about this because it minimizes the level of trust of American Armenians or Armenians around the world who would be contributing to Armenia, who are sitting there saying, well, that's not fair to say that. Why would you say something like that as a person like you, and you're Armenian, you have influence, now you're getting people to not want to give money? Fair. I understand that argument as well. I think the challenge becomes that folks in Armenia have to find a way to increase the level of trust of Armenians who are not in Armenia. How you go about doing that, it definitely didn't happen 7 months ago, 8 months ago, when the whole situation, all of a sudden, you got people who gave their kids' lives to go to war, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, here's what we're doing. We're not going to continue with the war, and we're just stopping. Okay, now you're not going to know why I made this decision and the reasoning behind the decision. Fair enough. Okay, but your even military leaders were upset with you. So how can you have your own military leaders that are not happy about the decision that you made? There wasn't 100% alignment there. So I think trust is number one. The reality of it is trust is number one. On the business side, I can tell you myself is, Armenia is producing some of the most incredible coders in the world. When I mean coders, I mean people are hiring engineers from Armenia to develop some incredible websites, and they trust the skill set and the ability of young Armenian coders worldwide. So people from America are hiring coders from Armenia, which is a very good direction because it shows that whatever the direction of educational system or vision they have for whatever direction they're going with it, it's effective. There is a need for Armenian coders around the world. That's a big check mark and a victory for Armenia. I'll give you the last one here. The last one is a little bit concerning for me, and it doesn't sit well with me. Again, I'm very comfortable with people disagreeing with every single one of my positions. When Armenia got in bed with China, I'm not comfortable with that, because what they're automatically doing when you go in bed with China, yet you want the support of Iran, or you want the support of US, it's a tough situation there, because on one end, say they do need the money. So if China says, we're going to come and invest $15 billion in Armenia, you know, you're tempted to say, yeah, sure, we'll do it. But at the same time, there are certain people who invest into your country that comes with a price, and the price is ownership, the price is influence, the price is slowly but surely controlling the decisions that you have to make, and you have to respond to them because there's a certain level of loyalty to the other country that gave you $15 billion, which is China. And China is probably the least trusted country in the world in the last 18 months. So that kind of gave a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth when I saw you know, Armenia partnering up with China. It doesn't make me feel very comfortable knowing who's behind closed doors influencing the decisions of the Prime Minister of Armenia.
Thank you for giving such a detailed answer, because I didn't give you the questions in advance. So I know it's hard to like just go completely brainstorm live on all of this stuff, because it really is a loaded question, and these issues are all very complicated. They're not black and white. So thank you for that.
Anytime, anytime.
You've also talked about victim mentality and victim culture. And we actually touched on this with one of my recent guests, political analyst Erica Kopian, who had actually written a brilliant piece about the branding of Armenia. And, you know, though we all know we have a very tragic and dark history with Armenian genocide, the point was that we don't necessarily want to be known for the Armenian genocide. We don't want to be pitied. We don't want to be known as refugees and as victims. He had said this brilliant line. He said, "Crucifixions happen every day. Only resurrections are miracles, and we are that miracle." I love that because it's coming from a position of strength. And now we are facing that same issue in American society as well. Why do you feel like it is so important not to adopt that kind of victim mentality?
You're trying to get me in trouble, but I'll tell you where I'm going with this here. Look, I grew up in a family where my mother's side, they believed in communism. My dad's side, they believed in imperialism. So my dad liked the Shah. My mom's family didn't like the Shah, okay? And it was always rich people are bad, okay? They only care about money and all this other stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, these rich people are terrible, you know? And then you'd always see mechka, okay, das ist mechka, 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 constantly mechka. I'm like, oh my gosh, this mechka stuff of coming, you know, mechkan. I'm like, look, you don't need to feel sorry for me. I don't like being felt sorry for, because you automatically are putting me in a category of a victim. I'm not a victim. You know, if I touch you and give you a hug, I'm going to feel you. If I'm looking at you right now, I can see you. I can see your purple blouse, your earrings. I can see the pillow in the back. I can see there's a balcony in the back. If you're speaking, I can hear you. If I drink this right here, you know, berry hibiscus from Starbucks, I can taste it. I have all the necessary, you know, gifts to be able to go do something with my life. I can do that. So there is a culture on the Armenian side of the victim side. And, you know, there's a beautiful side on the complete opposite side where we have high standards. We expect our kids to go and become doctors, lawyers, attorneys, engineers. We expect them to perform. There's a lot of pressure on Armenian kids to be somebody. And if you think about it, as an Armenian community, we've not done a bad job. The Armenian community has done a good job. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we have every bad example. I probably wasn't the most best example when I'm coming out of high school with a 1.8 GPA and I go straight to the Army, and I probably wasn't headed in the direction where somebody would say, look at this guy. He's definitely a great example of the Armenian community. That probably wasn't me 21 years ago. But we've done a decent job on that end. But the victim side, when I hear people tell, like, there's a video that NBC did in 2015, 6 years ago, I believe, interviewing living Armenians who were there when the genocide took place. I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's a fantastic video to watch, and it's very emotional and difficult to watch. And you see this one lady talking about it was 4 of them and what she witnessed them doing to her sisters or to her cousins. And you can tell the anger in this woman who's speaking. She's 110 years old when she's speaking. You can see the wrinkles in her face. There is history in the wrinkles in her face. And you see another man, there's a painting of where he grew up at and what he looks. It says, it's very hard for me to forgive. Listen, I understand them because they directly experienced it. I even understand the generation that her story's from them, right? Fine, there's certain challenges to it. But some of the folks today that are using that and clinging on that to get the attention of what happened to the folks who were directly involved, I don't think it's a healthy situation. I think we're seeing that not just in the Armenian community. I think we see that across the board with a lot of different nationalities and communities. But being Armenian myself, I see and hear this all the time. Yet at the same time, I want to also applaud many of the organizations out there. U.S. Armenians done a great job. There's a lot of them. These guys have reached out to me. I don't think what Joe Biden did recently and them finalizing it, I don't think that would have happened without all the marching, without all the going out there, without all the tweets, without all the messaging, without all the folks that were involved. I think that is a victory for them. But we have to now come out and say, okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we go be known for a community that creates some of the greatest innovations? Let's go create some of the best companies. Let's go create some of the best solutions. Let's go out there and have a reputation where people want to hire Armenians, where they want to say, where are you from? I'm Armenian. Really? Yes. I got to tell you, we have the best engineers here. You're hired. Where are you from? I'm Armenian. Really? Yes. Our CFO is Armenian. Come on board. Where are you from? I'm Armenian. Really? We have to change that reputation by going up there and winning at the highest level in all different fields. We need politicians that are Armenians that are winning. We need entrepreneurs that are Armenian that are winning. We need more Dukmejian type of governors. We need more folks that are going out there teaching responsibility, accountability. You can do something about your life. Make better choices rather than mehka, but ches haskanum, harus martik vaten, eseneten. I don't subscribe to that rhetoric. I think I grew up in a divorced family. My parents got a divorce, and I grew up in Glendale. So I went to Glendale High School, and I went to Wilson Woodrow Junior High School. I was a 1.8 GPA in high school. A lot of my kids, their parents would say, be careful with Patrick because Papa neterchi, Papa nerkwan kamatasum amisa. Papa and Gali said, Virgil's parked there. He would park there, pick me up, and go out, spend 2 days with him per month. So, Chenkimon and Patrick yet insha nalu. Karga Patrick metzana, drug tzach, karga bandeta, Chenkiman al inchapata hello. Okay, no problem. I'm totally fine with that. But that one spirit were coming out, and I saw what was going on, and I said, you know what? I don't know. I can sit here and act like a victim and feel sorry for myself, or I can go out there and do something about it. And I chose the alternative, and it's done me pretty well. And I think we'd like to see more Armenians take that mindset, because we have a very strong, brilliant group of Armenians out there that have a big possibility of making major positive impact in the world.
I agree 100%. So someone who would like to follow in your footsteps, what is the most practical piece of advice that you would give?
I'm a big fan of shadowing. I'm a big fan of shadowing. A lot of people ask me and they say, hey, Pat, how can I go out there and win and do this and do that? I'm like, listen, I'm a byproduct of the people I shadowed. Shadow to me is you come, you work with me for 2 or 3 years, okay? When you're working with me for 2 or 3 years, you're going to sit there and you're going to say, what was it like working with the guy? I got to tell you, this guy's at the office at 7:45 and he leaves at 8:30. Every night he's like a machine. He's there 5 days a week. I've seen him in negotiation. I've seen him lose it. I've seen him scream in his office, and we're listening to see what his reaction was. And he'll come and openly talk about what upset him. I've seen how he treats the employees. I've seen how fair he is. I've seen how he's doing this. I've seen how he sells. I've seen how he's handling money. I've seen some of the tough decisions we make. you know what, I like what he does, and the areas I didn't like about him, it's not that big of a deal. I don't need to do that, but the areas that he does well, I'm going to go ask him if I can own a piece of his company and what I need to do to become an executive and shareholder. Okay, great. If the guy says no, then he said, great, I'm going to go start my own company. But now you have an example of somebody who's extremely ambitious, driven, who won. Sometimes the biggest edge one has is to be able to witness somebody winning at the highest level, or a person who has a very high level of expectation of you, the individual. I don't know if you watch Tiger's documentary. If somebody's watched Tiger's documentary, I highly recommend watching Tiger's documentary. It's a two-part documentary. One Sunday night, this was like 4 weeks ago, I made the mistake at 10 o'clock of wanting to start it. And it's a Sunday night. I got Monday morning. So Sundays, I like to sleep pretty early. I started at 10 o'clock. I said, I'll watch it for 30 minutes and then I'll finish it up next week. 4 hours later, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I finished the documentary. I can't go to sleep all night. I'm thinking about Tiger. But when you watch the documentary, Sona, you will think about the father and the mother. You will think about how much time his father and mother poured into little Tiger. You don't become a great golfer at 2 years old without having somebody has a certain level of expectation or fun or practice, keeps you disciplined to do it. So, you know, the biggest challenge I'll give anybody, look around, make a list of 10 people. This is how I did it. Make a list of 10 people you respect in the community a lot, okay? You may say, I want to go work for Kardashian. I want to go work for Musk. I want to go work for, you know, let's just say you want to be in Hollywood. You want to be in finance. You want to be in insurance. You want to be in real estate. I don't care what it is. Make a list of the top 10 people in that business and reach out to them and say, what do I need to do to work for you? And then go and become their best person in their company. That 2-3 years of working with that person is better than getting an MBA from Harvard. The rest is history.
Well, you're obviously doing amazing. So what are your goals now for the next 5 years? What do you hope to accomplish?
I go on 20-year goals, 20-year runs. So the first 20-year run of my life is to make sure I don't make any major screw up mistakes, which, you know, it was the first 20. I made some, but nothing that was catastrophic, thank God. The second 20 years, once I got out of the military, I debated between bodybuilding, Hollywood. You know, I went and met with Aaron Spicer, who is, you know, Jennifer Lopez and Will Smith's acting coach. And I said, you know, what if I want to go into acting? Because, you know, the reputation was Pat's probably going to go on to do some movies. Anyway, so bodybuilding was out. I'm too tall for a bodybuilder. I'm 6'5". So 6'5", it's very hard to compete at 350 pounds. So it doesn't benefit me. A good height for bodybuilding is 5'10", 5'8", 5'9". It's to be 350 pounds to compete and to be able to carry that off season. It's not healthy for your heart. I said, I'm done with that. I'm not doing that. Hollywood, you know, one of the best advice Aaron Spicer gave was, you don't look like you would do good in Hollywood. I said, why is that? He says, because what do you do when you have a lot of time on your hands? I said, very bad things. He says, that's the biggest challenge for actors because you don't work half the year. He says, so if you don't work half the year and you're the kind of person that you have to always be doing something, I don't recommend taking that route. I said, great. He says, you should go buy movies, create movies, invest into stuff like that. I said, okay, I'm out. So then I went into financial industry. I said, I'm going to do this 20 years. I got involved into financial industry with Morgan Stanley Dean Witter a day before 9/11, which my 20 years is coming up this September 10th, which will be 20 years. So my next 20 years, I'm going to be all media. And we are going to go compete with the big boys in New York and Hollywood and build a media company that will be a very, very powerful, influential media company worldwide.
When you say you got into the financial industry, how did you make that leap? Where in the financial industry did you start?
Morgan Stanley Dean Witter was my day one. So I was dating a girl named Jean-Pierre. She was the advisor for most of the Laker players. And we met at Venice Beach and we started hanging out and we'd go out on dates and she would always show up in nice cars. I'm like, how do you make your money? And I had a Ford Focus. I'm like, listen, let's take your car instead of my Ford Focus. And we'd go out and how do you make your money? She says, I'm an advisor for Morgan Stanley Dean Witter. What is Morgan Stanley Dean Witter? I manage people's money. How do I do that? Well, I went to UCLA. Well, I'm not going to go to UCLA. Well, they don't hire without a 4-year degree. There's no way in the world I'm going to get a job. They're not going to hire you. I said, let me see what I can do. So I took my resume, which was pathetic. It was Haagen-Dazs, Bob's Big Boy on Glen Oaks. It was Haagen-Dazs at Glendale Galleria. It was Burger King off of Pacific in Glendale, right by the freeway. And it was Bally Total Fitness, and it was the Army. So my resume, not impressive, but on the cover letter, I put the best joke I had at the time. And on the bottom of the joke, I said, if you're laughing, this is exactly how my clients are going to feel when they do business with me. They're going to love me. If you want somebody like me part of your team, give me a call. I faxed it to Smith Barney, TD Waterhouse, Goldman Sachs, Merrill, Morgan Stanley, every one of those companies. 100 the resumes I faxed to 100 different places. And I got 30 callbacks. Half of them liked the joke, but they said, you're not qualified. The other half liked the joke, and they gave me an interview. Then I finally got 3 job offers. One of them was Glendale, Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, right off of 801 North Brand. It's now, I believe, the New York Life building off of right next to the 134 freeway by the Equinox. And obviously the rest is history.
So did you learn on the job? How did you even know what you were doing?
I had no idea what I was doing. But when I took my Series 7, you had to go through courses to take. So I had to learn about the Investment Company Act of 1934. I had to learn about all these rules and, options and bonds and stocks and mutual funds and variable annuities, very technical stuff. But I passed the Series 7 test when I took it with 78%. And then I had to get my Series 66, 31, 26 on life and health. And I became an advisor. And I've been in it ever since.
That's amazing. Okay. So last question, have you ever been to Armenia?
I never have.
No? Do you have any plans on going anytime soon?
So I have 2 friends, Steve, what's going on? I have 2 friends, Steve and Affo, who are very, very good friends of mine, who they're trying to do whatever they can in the most creative ways to make me go to Armenia. And these are professional salespeople. They're very, very good salespeople. And we're most likely going to end up going to Armenia. I don't know the exact timeline, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 12 to 24 months, once the dust settles, I pay a visit to Armenia. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I have a lot of good stories that people have shared with me of where it's what it's like there. That is one place I definitely want to visit.
It's incredible. Make sure you talk to me before you go. I will be helping with your itinerary. You will have the most amazing time.
I definitely will. I look forward to it.
Pat, it's been really inspiring talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.